Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Rahmat-i-Alam by SYED Sulaiman Nadvi. Muhammad, peace be upon him, mercy for the universe. Translated by A.Rauf Luther. Chapter 18. Pacts with Jews. Prior to the Prophet's arrival in Medina, the Aus and Khazraj tribes had been tired of their wars and they wanted to declare Abdullah bin Ubay Salul as their king, for he was a wealthy person. The Jews were also there. Their profession was trade and commerce. They were known as the traders of Hijaz. They were moneylenders as well. Their business extended from Medina to Syrian borders. They considered themselves to be the rulers of that area in view of their wealth and influence. Only for their own interest, they at one time sided the Aus tribe and then the other side so as to weaken them and have their hold stronger on these two tribes. The Jews did not oppose the Prophet in the early days. Just after he had arrived in Medina, perhaps they might have thought that he had brought a religion which was more or less quite similar to their own. Viewing with great interest and concern a wave of dissatisfaction and peaceless conditions in Medina, he was obliged to have some sort of agreement with them that both of them, the Muslims and the Jews, may live in an environment of peace. They will practice their religion in an atmosphere of calmness and would unitedly face the invaders from outside. So the Prophet had an agreement or pact with the Jews. The Jews were asked to make a firm promise, but after a few days they saw that Muslims were increasing strength and population, and their own strength would comparatively become weaker, and thus the Jews grew jealous of the Muslims. Abdullah bin Ubay had thought that if Muhammad, peace be upon him, had not come to Medina, he might have been declared the king of that region. Although he and his associates could not openly declare their minds, but in their heart of hearts they were against the Muslims and leaned towards the Jews. Such people are known as hypocrites. Meccan intrigues. The Meccans had confiscated all the property etc. belongings to the Muslims who had migrated to Medina and had banned the entry of Muslims to visit Kaaba and to perform Hajj. If anyone had dared to go there, it was never without risking his life. They did not allow the poor Muslims to go out of Mecca, and for this purpose they had posted some persons at various places. The Meccans came to know of the increasing strength of the Muslims in Medina, and thus they started their correspondence with the Jews of Medina and the hypocrites living in Medina itself. Thereafter, under a well-calculated scheme, they sent a message to the hypocrites and the Jews, showing their abhorrence about the shelter of the Muslims in Medina, and pleaded that the Jews etc. had provided the Muslims with shelter and those men were their criminals. And they said that it would be better if they were thrown out of their territory, otherwise the Meccans would raid them. Enemies of Muslims. Muslims had only one class of enemy at Mecca, that is the infidels. In Medina, there appeared three enemies such as Meccan infidels, hypocrites of Medina, and the Jews of Hijaz. The Jews were occupying a high position and had their sway over the territory because they were wealthy people and most of the inhabitants were under the burden of their deeds. The whole wealth of Arabia was in their custody. In a way, they had become the rulers of the produce of the cultivators and laborers of Arabia. The whole business and trade were in their hands. In view of this, they considered themselves to be the lords of the area. Their intriguers, compound interest, had gripped hard the people of the region, and the inhabitants would hardly speak against the Jews. And to stand against them was to invite a grave danger to their lives and property. Now the Jews, after having a little correspondence with the Quraysh of Mecca, stood against the Holy Prophet and also against the welfare of the Muslim dwellers. The Muslims had to get rid of these three dreadful enemies, for which serious planning was essential. If you like the video, then share it and subscribe the channel. Press the bell icon and click on all. Jazakumullahu khairan kathira. Thank you.